Yes, I made an announcement, but I'm always making announcements that we are live as well to wake up people.
Oh yeah, I can see myself on there now. There we go.
For that. Okay. Announced it. Let me refresh my page and see if it's working. Okay. Oh, and also before I forget, let me share the game Steam page on my chat as well, because I did that.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah. I will make this link highlighted link and okay. Okay, so let me check if on my end there is no lag, and then we can actually start. Let me check if okay. Somehow. Okay. Okay, let me sit into my original position here.
All right.
Sorry, by the way, that I was looking right, so it's just my main monitor is here and my camera and my laptop is
Okay.
there, so yeah.
No, all good. No problem.
Okay. Hölgyek, urak, tudassátok velünk, hogy nincsen lag. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and let us know that there is no lag on my end, so we can actually start the interview. Let us know, okay? Please let us know, and you will be able to ask questions at the end of our interview. Jó minden? Everything is good? Okay.
Yeah.
If there will be Hungarian questions, I'm sure I will translate it to you to English, so don't worry about that.
That will be perfect because I'm English is the only language I know.
Okay.
So.
It's okay. Okay. Are you down to start? Let me know.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's rock and roll.
Let's go. Okay, welcome everyone at my very new episode of Dev Live Show. I'm today joined with the creator of Dolwen, Andrew, and I'm very thankful and very honored that you joined us today. And like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Remulto. I'm very, very happy to be on your show. I've watched a couple of episodes, and yeah, it seems like you have a bit of fun, so I like that. So my name's Andrew. I am a principal engineer for a company called Covine Entertainment.
Okay.
We are a small indie studio in Melbourne, all the way down the bottom of the world, which is in Australia. And we're currently working on our flagship product, which is called Dolwen. It's a turn-based RPG, and it's combined with a card deck builder. So I'm sure we'll get right into all that sort of stuff, but I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm always saying and asking this question of mine at my interviews, that what was the very first contact with video games as a player for you?
Oh, yes. Well,
interested in origin stories of people about games.
Yeah. So I can't remember whether it was Choplifter or it was Rogue, but back in the 80s, and you know, I'm showing my age here. I've got a few grey hairs. I played a lot of games on the old IBM 386s and Apple IIes with the green screens and everything. And so I used to love going to my grandmother's house because she was the only one with a computer. And my cousin and I would play Choplifter for hours, and we would play the game Rogue for hours as well. And it was really then that I thought to myself, you know, this is really interesting, and you know, I'd love to make one of these one day.
Okay, so you're saying that you always had this dream of making your own games back then, even back
Yeah,
then?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, I think back then, it was a bit different to growing up these days. I think there's a lot of
I see.
consumerism, and I think back then I mean, I wasn't really wealthy or anything like that, so we kind of had to make our own fun, and so my entire childhood was very creative, because there's nothing else to do, right? you might as well try and make something.
True.
And so, yeah, we decided to, I just thought to myself, well, I make cubby houses. I make, my cat's come to join us, by the way. This is my cat.
Very
This is
cute
Honey.
cat. Very cute cat.
Yeah.
What is the name of
Yeah.
the
So
puppy?
Honey.
Honey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honey. Yeah. She gets a bit jealous when I'm talking to people, but anyway. And so I always had that sort of creative spark in me, and so I naturally, when I saw a computer game, I thought, well, how do you make that? That could be really interesting to make. And so ever since then, I've been tinkering, and I've made a few games, but nothing to the scale of what we've built today. So yeah.
I see. Was, by the way, the gaming industry oriented job your first job, or you worked in some
No.
different territory?
Yeah, so at university I studied applied science, and so it was a range of things from physics to mathematics, statistics, all that sort of jazz. And about third year, I really started to get back into programming. So I'd done it a little bit when I was younger, just sort of tinkering. But when I sort of rediscovered in third year university, I think it was, I think we were writing C++ at that time. And I knew it was something I wanted to do because I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and think, that's how I do that bit, And so I was really, really passionate about, it's like, this is it. And so from there, I actually joined a company called Esri, and they are a global GIS company. And what that means is it's basically like map making. So it's like, but back then we didn't have Google, right? So we had all these little companies trying to be the big mapping company. Anyway, so I joined this company called ESRI, and I worked for them for a little while. So that's GIS. From there, I did a little bit of work with the Australian Defence Force. So it was all software engineering. And then I worked for a startup, which was business intelligence, for about nine years, I think it was.
I see.
And then I moved to, where was it after that? Insurance. And then I went to logistics, and then I went to utilities and banking as well in there. So I've sort of done all of the big corporate jobs and also startup jobs. And yeah, along the side, I've been also building games. But yeah, I think only recently have I formed a team, which has actually been able to help me deliver this one as well.
I see.
Yeah.
So from the transition of your life from other territories of jobs, being a game developer, was it hard or scary to take the first step to actually start making your very own game with a team?
I don't know. Like I didn't find it very scary. I mean, for the last 10 years, I've been a leader forming teams in these software companies, and so I'm kind of used to being understanding, how to bring a team together, how to keep them, engaged and aligned in what they're doing, and then trying to direct a team into a sort of a positive outcome, which is to be honest, I think there's a lot of leaders out there that sort of are thrown into these positions and don't have any training or anything like that. I did a couple of courses in leadership, and that really helped me. But yeah, it's I felt excited mainly. That's what I felt. So, and I still am. So yeah.
I see. And looking back to your past, life experience, would you think that you would regret if you did not make the first move into or in order to be a game developer as yourself?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I sort of, I think to myself, well, I'm not getting any younger. I'm probably, at least halfway
You're
through my
still young.
life.
You're a
Maybe
kid making
I'm,
games, right? Because you're creative. I
that's
believe in
right.
that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I still got the mind of a 14-year-old, so that's all
True.
good.
And that's a good thing, in my opinion. So don't get
I
me
agree.
wrong.
I agree.
Yeah,
You got to stay young in the mind. You got
true.
to stay young in
Exactly.
the mind.
Exactly.
And yeah, and so I thought, do I want, in 10, 15 years, do I want to look back and think I did something that I didn't really want to do
I
with,
see.
and I kind of, maybe something that I didn't really have a lot of fun with or was really stressful, or do I want to look back and say, hey, I actually had a crack at doing something I love? And I think I genuinely believe that it's not the outcome that is the most enjoyable part.
The
It's the
road.
journey.
Yeah, and the journey. Yeah.
It's the journey, right?
Exactly.
And so, and so that's what I'm on right now. I'm on the journey and I'm loving it. It's great fun.
I see. And if you look back, what can you think of what could cause the fact that it took you so many years to figure out that okay, I want to actually make games, and not work in other territories of my life or in my life?
I love your questions. They're really good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess really it came down to a sense of responsibility because I mean, actually during my, if we step back a little bit, during my university days and a little bit before, I was I still make music as well. So I'm not only a games developer, I make music, and I've just released a new album, by the way. Only just recently. It's on pre-sale now. I'll pop the link in at some point. But getting back to the point, I sort of feel as though I had this kind of sense of responsibility that I need to look after, my family. So I had a young family coming out of university. I married my lovely wife, who you would have seen in the background a little bit here. She's not here at the moment, but it's probably making a cup of tea or something. So she had 2 children before she met me. We had 2 kids together, so we had 4 kids all up. I don't know if you've ever seen the show The Brady Bunch, the US show called The Brady Bunch.
I'm not
Anyway,
sure
it was an
if
80s.
I'm familiar with it, but yeah.
It was an 80s show where
Okay.
2 families came together. We were like the Brady Bunch, basically.
I see.
And so yeah, 4 kids, and yeah, so you can't not work. You can't sort of
understandable.
and the game, yeah, and the games development industry, you don't get paid a lot. It's unfortunate, and that's because it's a glamorous role. I believe people should be paid for the same work as other people. If I'm working in a bank doing some work,
True, I
or
agree with
if I'm doing the same work,
it's creative work, and you cannot live
yeah,
it by money. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's and it's like, yeah, I can understand a little bit of a difference between industries, but it's a massive difference. We're talking, orders of magnitude difference in terms of the money that you earn. And
Especially
so
that you have to work even more hours than in a regular 9 to 5 job. So.
yeah, spot on, and it's pretty cutthroat as well, and I mean, we saw a lot of jobs in the last 18 months have been lost in this industry, thousands of jobs all over the world.
True.
And yeah, and so I couldn't really justify, working in that sort of area, but I would come home, and I still come home, and I do things and I build stuff and I make things anyway. I make it happen. You got to make time,
True.
And if I'm a big believer that if you just, do a little bit each night, whatever the passion is that you've got, a little bit each night, an hour or 2, in no time you'll have something there that you can share with the rest of the world. So
I agree with you.
yeah.
Do you find hard to actually find and make balance between your family and also your work?
Yeah, I mean, I run on pretty strict schedule, to be honest. So I'm up at 7 o'clock at least every morning, and I do a bit of exercise, early in the morning, and then I'll spend a bit of time with the kids in the morning, get them ready, and take them to school, things like that, or I'll go and pick them up, just so I'm in their lives, and we can have a bit of a conversation at during the day,
They are
and
the
then we'll
biggest
have dinner.
fans of your games, right? So
Yeah, well, they're probably more embarrassed with me at the moment. They're getting a bit older, so anything that Dad does is embarrassing. But anyway,
they are
that's the way it
at that
works.
stage of their life. I see.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I think they secretly enjoy it. Anyway, yeah. So we have dinner. We always have dinner. Sit down, have dinner together, and often we go on walks.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll carve out time to make sure that happens, because it's quite. It can be, game development is probably the most difficult thing you can do in software engineering, depending on what you're building, and so. You've got to make sure you balance that with your family and also your health. I mean, you can't be sitting in front of a computer for 18 hours a day. You got to get out there. You got to move around.
True. Okay.
Mm.
Were your family members, by the way, and close friends supportive about your decision that you actually switched to a more unstable part of job territory by making games? How do you feel about that? Because in my opinion, it's very important to have a supportive background that supports you with your vision.
They're kind of used to it. I mean, I've always been changing careers, and as I said, I'm sort of, I make music as well. I mean, I got out there and played a lot of places, and so anything that I do is kind of, that's a bit out there, is kind of normal, I guess.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
I see. And so, as from being a game developer, how have you changed as a person in other territories of your life? And also, what skills have you picked up in other territories of your life as from being a game developer?
Yeah, I think the big one is just meeting other people that are into it. So I made a really good friend up in Sydney. So Sydney's it's about 8 hours from Melbourne. Actually, 10-hour drive and a 1-hour flight. So he came down. His name's Mike, by the way. He runs a company called The Kids From Yesterday. And he's partnered up actually with me to build Dolphin. Anyway, so I've met him, and he's at the same time he quit his job, and so it was like, we both had the same sort of sentiment. It was like, I don't want to be 60, 70 years old, look back and think, why didn't I give it a go?
True.
And so. Yeah, and so I think that's kind of the key is that I've kind of in the aspect in which I've changed is I've met a lot of people that are kind of into the same thing.
I see.
Even across generations. So I've met another great guy called Trent. He's from Swinburne University, which is quite close by here. He just graduated. He's been helping out on the game as well. As I said, we've been to a number of conferences, and that's been really fun because we've the next one I'm going to go to, we're actually going to dress up. We're going to get a cosplay and all that thing happening. So it's really that kind of social aspect, I think, is really interesting. In terms of kind of what I've learnt, I've learned a lot about the platform that I'm using, which is Unity. And so, I mean, I have done a fair bit of work in it before this point, but this particular game, because it's a bit different to other games, you can't just sort of take an example off the shelf, mold your sort of graphics to it and then release it. This particular game is, the mechanics are different to pretty much every other game, and so I've had to kind of build tools and systems that will help me quickly develop the game. And I think that's what's really helped me. I mean, we're talking about, the balance between, kids and life and engineering games. I think the key really is making sure you sit down and you build the right tools that will help you, create the game quicker. So I've done a whole bunch of little tools and tests. I've drawn on all the experience that I've had in the last, couple of decades in the corporate world, and applied them to this as well. So I think that's helped a fair bit.
I see. Okay. And you were talking about that you met so many friends on the road, on the journey of yours of making games. Do you think like it's a meant to be thing for people to meet, their friends on the road if they have a vision to do something? How do you feel about it?
I think I think there's definitely an alignment. I don't think it's predetermined. I think that it's really you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to go out there and you've got to have a go at it. Now, not everyone that I've met has been.
But there are so many people around the world, right? So
there are
actually find the right ones in order to.
Well, I mean, going to the right places, and I think a bit of it's luck. You just got to. I mean, if I sort of talk about Mike, who we were talking about before in Sydney. I used to work with a guy who he ended up working with, and this colleague of mine saw my game on Facebook, and he said, "Hey, Mike, when you're down in Melbourne, go and chat to Andrew about the game," and we hit it off, and bang. So there was that connection that was kind of there all the time, but I just didn't make that connection until we actually went there and chatted to him. So I think a lot of it is just you got to get out there, you got to talk to people, you got to make mistakes, learn from them. I think that's really the key to trying to follow your passion. I think that's what it is.
And that's as a form of teams that you mentioned, that you had this ability and talent of forming groups and making them, having this synergy. Do you believe in perfect synergy between people, by the way?
No, and I think the beauty is that you want that friction. You want people that are different. You want people that are that talk too much. You want people that don't talk at all. You want people that people that get angry, people that and now the hard bit is kind of trying to keep them all, and as a leader, you're mainly a moderator. You're trying to keep them all, trying to keep them all in the aligned towards a goal. But the thing is that if you have, a perfect synergy between a group, you actually don't get a lot of innovation out of it. You want the group to be a little bit different, certainly diverse in the way that they think, their backgrounds, their cultures, all that sort of thing. Because then they'll bring in an idea that someone else didn't think of, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and they'll question it, exactly, and so they're the best teams that I've ever put together, are the ones where, I mean, myself as a leader, I learnt that pretty early, is that you as a leader, you tend to hire people that are the same as you. But what you want to do is actually try and find people that, that perhaps aren't like you. You could still work with them. So, but, people that might think a bit differently. I think that's really key to, innovation and keeping the team engaged,
I see. Okay. And how could you describe yourself as a leader of groups? What kind of leader you are? A very polite one. You always trying to find the perfect balance, and sometimes you can act like very harsh.
So I'm what they call a servant leader. Okay. There's a few different types of leaders. So a servant leader basically is someone who tries to remove roadblocks. So where someone's trying to do their job, and like I'll take an example. I used to work for a big energy company in Australia, and in a lot of corporate positions, all of the certain teams are centralized. So one example is security. That's always centralized in one location and one team. And the problem is that you've got all these projects around the place and they're all trying to get their stuff
Oh, your camera and
approved
voice
by security work. Oh, you still got me?
yeah, now.
You still got me?
Yeah, now it's back.
All right. Could be. I've got Starlink, so it might be Elon Musk playing with the cameras. I don't know.
He's
But
watching
anyway,
our interview.
that's right. He's jumped in. Anyway, as I was saying, so basically you end up with this really big backlog of projects for one team. Now, my job would be to try and get our project at the top of the thing, so it unblocks everyone and they can keep working. That's one example, and I think that was the main sort of part. The other part is really what we call hygiene, and that is, and it's not like putting deodorant on. Hygiene actually means making sure people have got all the tools that they need to do their work. Laptops, tables, chairs, headphones, all the things, access, all that sort of stuff.
I see.
Making sure that's all perfect so that they can actually do the work. So a lot of those little things is. Oh, and then the other big part of it, which is the part I dislike the most, is stakeholder management, and that's basically trying to explain to stakeholders how much something will cost and how long it will take, which you have no idea, because software engineering, you just don't know. It's like until you get in there and have a crack at it, you might be able to say, weeks, months, years, but you can't tell them, it's going to be ready on Tuesday. It's just not going to happen. So that a lot of that sort of management happened, and I don't miss that, to be honest.
Okay. So as for going deeper to talk about your games, so I believe that all of us creators who make any form of art or media or anything that we have a vision for, we put our inner self in it and our life experiences, even if it's bad or good, even if it's a loss of someone, or even if it's a good friendship or love or something like that. So do you believe that it's true for yourself as well, this statement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. So Dolphin is actually the combination of two of my passions.
Okay.
I love turn-based games, so I was really into, even the very first game that I played, Rogue, was the battles were turn-based. I've always played. I love the Ultima series that came out in the 80s and 90s. Ultima 6 and 7 were fine. 8 was okay. And also played Baldur's Gate, the original. I'm old enough to play the original, and also Baldur's Gate 3. What else? Love Divinity Original Sin. So I'm really into that kind of, those really long battles. I especially liked it during COVID, because I could sit here and be programming, and I'd do I'd take my mage and fire off a fireball, and then go back to work, and so that was fun.
That's real multitasking.
So I love the turn-based stuff, and always big into fantasy stuff. I've always loved sci-fi and fantasy as kind of since I was a child. And I also love card games. So often we would go. My parents, my grandparents had a beach house down in. It's quite close to where I live, about an hour away. And we used to go down there, and we'd always play card games. So we'd play games like Jim Rummy and another game called 500, Hearts. A bit of poker, a bit of, all different types of games, blackjack, all that sort of stuff. I still do that. So I have a few mates that I go out with on Saturday night. We sit together and have a game of cards. And so I thought, well, why not join those two things together? And that's really what Dolphin is. It's a combination of a turn-based strategy game and a card deck builder. And I think the twist on it is that you actually form hands in the game. So it's not like, games like Slay the Spire or Gloomhaven where you just kind of play a card on a particular player. This one, you form hands like, pairs, three of a kind, straights, flushes, all those sort of things. And it gives you rewards as you play it. So, yeah, I'm finding it fun. So if I'm finding it fun, hopefully other people will as well.
Nice. That's the vision. That's the passion in you, right?
Yeah.
And
That's right.
it's very lovely to hear you speaking about that you put your childhood memories into this game. I really appreciate when people do that and respect their childhood experiences. So
yeah, I've had a few comments saying it looks like a game that was built in the 2000s and made contemporary, and so it's like, yeah, it's probably right.
People can be harsh sometimes on the internet, but you have
they
to
can
learn,
be, but
you have to learn not to take to it.
no, I take it as I take it as a compliment. It's like, that's exactly how I want it to look. So it's all good.
And I appreciate the looks of your game, and everything around it. Okay, so by the way, you were talking about that you are still very much into like playing with real cards as well. Are you planning to like release a real deck of cards from your game? So
well, just today, okay. We received the first prototype of an actual Dolphin card game.
Okay.
And have you got that? I'm going to get my wife to go and grab it.
By the way, say hi to her.
I will. She can't hear you. I got the headphones on, but I'll yeah. And so yes, we have put together an actual card game. Now it's not quite as sophisticated as the original. This is my wife, by the way. Ronnie, say hello. Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you. Hi.
He says nice to meet you. Yeah, so this is the card game. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera there.
I do see.
And so basically, it's got some really nice looking cards, and it's played a little bit like Magic the Gathering, but again with a little bit of a twist to it. You can actually form a hand, so you'll see in the top or in this corner here. I'm not sure which side it is. That's the mana, so that's how much mana it costs to play the card, and this one here is called the rune count. Now, if you put two cards down with the same rune count, you get a pair, right? And that gives you extra mana to then play another card. So that's kind of the strategy. Now you can get pairs, three of a kinds. You can get 2 mana and then draw a card as well. So there's all these different sort of combinations you can do with it. And then the battling, it's kind of a combination of Magic the Gathering, which basically, if you can see here, that the rune count sort of determines the damage that you would do on another card. But we also added in a dice roll. One of my favorite board games I ever played is Talisman. And again, a 1980s sort of game that came out, a board game. And it has a battle system like that where basically you kind of roll a die on top of your character's stats, and then you kind of battle it out, which gives it that bit of randomness, I guess, to the battles. So, yeah, which is cool. So, yeah, we're really excited about this one.
Are you planning to release, by the way, this IRL cards when the game drops, when the full game drops? Or what's your plan?
Yeah, that's going to be the plan. In fact, I mean, it's not official yet, and probably this is the first time we've kind of talked about it. So it's exclusive, absolutely exclusive information. That we, I think the idea is that we're going to release Dolphin, and then we'll also release a kind of like a gold edition, which will include the game as well, the card game. So it's still in early days, but that's the idea, is to have a bundle where you can purchase them. Yeah.
By the way, are you
So,
planning to release your game to consoles as well, and with the physical edition, or to PC with the physical edition, like in a disc or a pen drive or something like that?
it will depend on the success. I think I mean we're obviously a pretty small studio, don't have a huge amount of capital, but we have enough at least to finish the main PC game and get it up on Steam. If it does really well, we will certainly look at porting it to the various consoles. And look, we can do that with Unity. It's quite a good system for that. There's a few little tweaks, of course, you got to do with every system, but a lot of the work, is kind of done already with these game development platforms. So yeah, so that's the dream. That is the dream.
Love that. I love the real cards as well that we will be able to buy.
Thank you.
So what's the plan for whether players will be able to buy those cards, or you still don't know?
It's still early days. We need to do the economics around it as well. So what we're doing is we're going to take these cards. We're going to take them to the conferences that we're playing. Tomorrow night, we're actually going down to there's like a meetup of game developers in the city, and so we're going to go down there. We're going to take the cards, and we're going to try it out and test it on and see if people like it, what they want to change, get the feedback.
So 2 games in one, right? You have to go.
That's it.
2 games in one.
Yeah. That's right. And so that's what we're going to do, and we're going to try it out and see if people, see what the feedback's like, and then go from there. So I'm a big believer in iterative feedback. I think if you kind of stick your head in the sand and just build something that you think is great, it may not hit well with the customers. So I'm a big believer in making sure that you listen to feedback, and maybe not all of it will be relevant, but there'll be some parts of it that'll be repeated to you all the time, and you got to listen to those and try and work with that. So that's what we'll be doing with this game.
It's like the same mentality that you mentioned when forming a team of yours, that you want to hire people who might have not very similar vision, but they are willing to work.
Exactly.
Right? So people can question each other and help develop themselves. It's not just an individual person, but as a team as well, in order to grow.
Spot on. Yeah, spot on. And you need that sort of diversity because, it's if you all think the same, then you're all going to, nobody's going to ask a question, and
it would be a boring word, right?
Yeah, it would be. It'd be very boring.
Okay. Yeah. And so you mentioned the music part. Are you making the whole soundtrack for the game as yourself or by yourself as well?
No, that I've licensed the music in the game. I might actually release it in another game. That's a possibility, because we have got a few games that are kind of in the pipes, so we may do that. I've just pinged you a link, by the way, of our music. So
on Discord, or in the chat
on Discord.
On Discord.
I can pop it in.
Let me
So we've my brother and I we've been making music for a long time, and we've just released this 10-track album as well. So it's been really crazy here, because I've been building a game. We just moved house as well, so I moved into a new house. We just recorded a 10-track album. What else could I do? It just goes on and on. But you may as well be doing something with your life.
Was music, by the way, something that you always have done in your life, or was it something that you have picked up at some point of your life?
My parents were in a band. They were in an 80s cover band in the 80s. Okay. They used to take me to band practice, so I know all the 80s songs. I know all of the lyrics, everything. And so that's where it started. My father had a music room as well, so we'd go down in there and play around with the guitars and everything, and he'd get really angry at us because we never put it away and break the strings and things like that. But yeah, ever since then, I've always been playing in bands and making music. So yeah, that's been another really big part of my life. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Would you like to form a band as well?
I actually I have been in a number of bands.
Oh, okay.
So I was.
Because I can tell that you miss music. That's what I'm asking. Because you're.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
talked about music so many times, so I can feel on you that you're pretty much into music as well, not just into making videos.
Yeah.
That's the other dream of yours.
Definitely.
Right? So.
That's my alter ego. Yes, my other 14-year-old alter rock star ego. Yeah, so I was in a band in the 90s called Nausea, and we did really well, actually. We played on national television here, on the television, and there was only 7 or 8 channels back then, so that was big,
It was the mainstream, so it was way easier to get people's attention.
It was mainstream. Yeah. It was, and yeah, we did that. We recorded albums. We played in pubs and clubs and places like that in the city for about 10 years. And yeah, it was really fantastic, to be honest. So I've been in a couple of bands. Look, I don't miss the gigging, because going out there and playing, occasionally I do, but not a lot. The thing is with music, it's a bit like the gaming industry in that there's only a very small number of people that are really successful. And I think, you've got to have a bit of luck on your side as well. The thing I didn't enjoy was playing live too much, because basically playing live means that you need to be, again, you're going to need to be out there and going out all the time and meeting people and staying out quite late, even Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, networking with bands, setting up nights, that sort of thing got a bit old when I was in my late 20s and I wanted to settle down with the kids. You can't be out every night when you got kids. And so,
Right.
You can't. There's just no way to do it. It's not very good for a family life. So, and so I've held on to the recording aspect of it. I really, really enjoy creating the music, and so does my brother. And so we get together every weekend and we make music. And this one here is it's basically 5 years worth of weekends. So we've got together and put together this album, which is all about, it's basically sounds like an 80s or 90s kind of an album. So if you're into that sort of era, you might like this. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Okay. So as for going back to talking about your game again, so what was your goal with the difficulty settings of Dolwen? So
good question. So early on, I think the plan was to make sure people mostly won the game. All right. Okay. So the first play test that I ever did was at PAX last year, which is like the biggest the biggest gaming thing in Australia, the biggest gaming conference. And about a month beforehand, I was totally not ready. But my wife just signed us up for it a month beforehand and said, "Andrew, you're going." I'm like, what?
She's the manager.
That's it. She's like, yeah. And I'm scrambling. Like, it's not ready. Oh, you'll be right. It'll be ready. Don't worry. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I scrambled. We got to the point where you could play one room, which is, so Dolben's also kind of a dungeon sort of crawling game as well. And so we've got it so you can play one room, and we made it so that it was easy enough to beat that one room, so we could sort of get people playing it, and and off they go. And look, it was probably a little bit easy to start with, so pretty much everyone was able to beat it. So I've tightened it up a little bit now. It's a little bit more difficult, but the approach to sort of balance it is really a bit about what I was talking about before, which is this idea of building tools. So Dolphin can actually play itself. So I get it to play itself over and over again. And then, I'll see whichever class might be more powerful, or, a card might be a bit too powerful. So if it always wins in a particular way, then, I can make adjustments. And so that's kind of where I've balanced a lot of it. I've also done the same with the damage calculators. So with the game, there's part of the strategy is around the classes you attack with. So if you're a rogue and you attack a mage, then you should be doing more damage than if you're a rogue and you're attacking a guardian. And so there's kind of this balancing mechanic in there as well that I've got well tested and can tweak as well. So yeah.
I see. And on when you started like balancing the game of yours, what was the hardest part in that territory of making your own game?
The hardest part, I think, was really the sort of the I guess the combination of the skill system and the card skill system. So there's a character. Basically, you have two kind of main aspects to it. One is the movement of your characters in the grid. The other one is the cards that you play. Now, your characters can play. They can play skills. So, for example, the rogue has an aura of agility, and so it can increase the dexterity by a certain amount. And then you can play a card that also increases dexterity, and and that would, in some cases be a little bit too high, because you just, one shot a mage straight away, and it's like, hang on, that's too much. And so, that balancing that out was kind of difficult, but I think it's in a pretty good state now. Probably needs a little bit more tweaking. Especially because you can get a little bit powerful in the game. But to be honest, I don't mind that. Like, I don't know if back when if you've ever played strategy games, the first couple of times you play it, it doesn't, you don't go really well at it, and you sort of get this sense like, I want to get more powerful, and so in this game you can do that. You can get gear, you can put gear on yourself, you can get new swords, and then you have another go at it and you win, and that's a good feeling.
Say this, that a lot of people who complain about, for example, the meta cards, for example, if we mention card games or the OP cards, I always say this, that in my terms of OP, it's like a very stupid word, because like it's more of like people cannot understand the game and cannot compete with things that might be more powerful. So I'm always saying this: if you put enough effort, time, and knowledge into something that you would like to passionate be about and with, then you will be able to beat those OP things that they call so.
Spot on.
True.
That's the point, isn't it?
It's just people are lazy or do not have enough time, and it's rather easier to complain, right, than learn and study the actual thing in order to be better at it. So yeah,
that's right.
Okay, so during the development process of your game of Dolphin, were there anything that you had to cut out from the game itself? Parts, ideas?
Yes, definitely. So I've got a massive list of things that I want to put in there.
One thing, like, we're planning to get back to those, and like in the future updates, you could add those again into your game.
Definitely. So one of the things that everyone asks about is multiplayer. So is it ever going to be multiplayer? We've had to cut that for the first release because it's too big. And so, but that's one thing I'd love to get in there, even if it's just one room where you go into a room, you're battling against another player. That would be pretty cool.
By the way, I have an idea. Sorry for interrupting you. You
No, go
mentioned
for it.
multiplayer right now, and I was thinking about that. But just that you mentioned multiplayer, it would be such a cool feature also to have like something not a real multiplayer where like you connect with other players, but you are playing through
Mm.
the story and someone invades you. Like for example in Souls, in some rooms,
Yes,
there would be like a room when people can
that would be
invade
cool.
you. It would be so cool,
Well, I
right?
like that. I like that idea. I
Yeah.
might steal that one. Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Yeah, and so anything like that, I think that'd be fantastic. We're going to try and get a leaderboard system in there when it releases, and so you'll be able to, basically when you form a hand, you'll get points, and those points will count towards a leaderboard. Yeah, and so. But yeah, in terms of things we've had to leave out, we want to. I mean, there's things like differing sized grids at the moment. So at the moment, we've got one grid size, and that's the same for the whole dungeon. So you can think kind of Binding of Isaac sort of a style dungeons. But yeah, I'd like to have that varied a bit. We've done a little bit of that where we've introduced the obstacles that you can't sort of walk on.
Yeah.
So particular squares you can't go on. We've got a new card as well called Torvis that will destroy one of the tiles, and then you'll fall through the tile, and then you can't walk on it anymore. And so put traps in and things like that. So there is a bit of variability in terms of the grid space, but nothing like adding and removing squares, which I think it's absolutely doable. And that might be something we can get in, but it's probably on the edge of those things where it's like, oh, do we do it, or do we just release as is? Yeah.
I see. Okay. And so after the full release of your game, are you like planning to add a bunch of new cards to your game as well?
Yeah, that's the plan. So it'll release. The demo is going to have 30 cards to start with, and the full release will have 100.
Okay.
And then we plan to keep adding more cards onto it. The demo will have 4 character classes, which is your warrior, guardian, mage, and rogue. The full release will have 6, so we'll include a cleric and an archer. And then, later on after release, we're thinking about adding other character classes as well. And the other thing I didn't mention was that the cards themselves are suited. So you have 3 suits. You have the dexterity suit, the strength suit, and the intellect suit.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so that's how you can form a flush, for example. If you put all dexterity cards down on the pillars, you get a flush. You get straight flushes and things like that as well.
I see.
Yeah.
Anyway, and luck, right, to pull out those cards from your deck, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Or you can actually stack your deck. So you can stack your deck with dexterity cards. But this is where it gets interesting, right? This is the interesting part. Certain dungeons you have to stack your deck in a certain way, otherwise you're not going to pass the dungeon.
I see.
And so it's sort of and the way that's going to work is that when you go into a dungeon, you might be fighting say all mages, which means you kind of need more dexterity based cards. So you want to push more dexterity based cards, but not too much, because otherwise you have nothing to buff your guardian, or your mage or whatever you've got yourself. And so there's there's quite a deep kind of strategy element to it. So for example, dexterity cards, when you play it, they'll buff your rogues, but they won't do much to your mages, right?
I see.
And so, you've got to be careful, A, what cards you put in your deck, but also B, where you play them and when you play them. Because there's that sort of an aspect of having different suits that are suited to different dungeons. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, can you miss some secrets during, for example, your first playthrough, if you will play through the full game?
Could you miss secrets?
Yeah, like
Do you
players
mean?
can miss secrets if they play through the game. Like there are like secret rooms or some secrets that they can miss. Sorry.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. Yeah, probably. I mean, there's certainly chests that you can find and miss. So, in fact, the first room you go in, you've got to be careful to make sure you find that chest because you can get gear from it and that can help you, get through the dungeon. So yeah, there are little aspects like that. You got to be careful where you walk sometimes as well, because there's one particular card we've just put in there, which is called Bear Trap. And if I play it, my opponent can't see it. But if my opponent plays it, I can't see it. And so the boss will often play that card. And if you walk in the wrong spot, you'll get snapped up by the trap. So yeah, there's little things like that in there as well, just to change it up a little bit.
Okay, I see. So and after like the full release, if we go in a bit into the future of yours and releasing the games after releasing the full game of yours, are you planning like just to keep updating Dolphin with new cars and new systems that you have mentioned, or also you have plans for other games to develop as well?
My plan for Co1 Entertainment is to have multiple games in development at once.
Are they based in the same universe, by the way?
No, completely different. So Dolphin, we actually have this. Dolphin is actually it's a game that is based on a story that we made up quite a while ago, and it's the second. It's the second part of the story. So there's 3 parts to the story. The first part I'm not going to tell you about because it kind of spoils it. But this one is the second part, and then there'll be another possibly. Well, there is another story, which is Dolphin Part 3. So this one's called just straight up Dolphin. The next one will be called something different, but it'll be in the same universe with the similar characters and things like that. So that's certainly a possibility.
I see. Yeah. So you mentioned it's the second one of the story, and I also realized that when reading through the description of the Steam page of the game, that it's something that it's a prequel to, or no, sequel to something in a story way. So is it like a secret that you cannot talk about for which story?
Yeah. So.
Or is it a game, or is it a book, or is it any form of media? Or?
It will be a game, for sure, and so it might be released after this second story. We might release the first one and then the third one.
So you made the second one, and you are planning to release then the first one.
Yeah, then the first.
Okay. What made you do that? So what was the idea behind that choice?
Yeah, it's well, I think this one suited a kind of it was probably the most interesting
it's like in medias res, right? In books, when you go into the middle of something and then you go back to the beginning and then close with the end.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's the really juicy part of it, and I don't want to give away too much of the story, but at the end of the story, at the end of the story, you got to make a difficult choice, right? And that's the one I think where it might have a bit more of a resounding effect on people, and I think that's really what you want to do in a game is. It's all about the experience, right? True. You want people to experience the game and probably in its its best form in terms of the story, and then once you've got that, you can then delve into the other aspects of it. It's kind of like when you listen to music, getting back to music. I'm always talking about music, but if you
You will have to get into music more. That's my advice for you. That will be the homework for you from me.
Yes. You listen to a band, right? And then, or a song, and you think, oh, okay, I might go and listen to that. So you listen to the whole album after that, and then you might think, oh, who were they influenced by? And then you might go and listen to the band that they were influenced by. And that's kind of the way. That's the way I'm trying to introduce this. Is sort of
but that's
the first bit.
Fresh perspective, by the way. That's rare.
Yeah, it's kind of the way that I go about listening to music, and I thought, well, let's take don't bury the lead, put the thing out there, it's in its best sort of form, and then people appreciate it, and then they'll go back and they'll appreciate the first part and the third part even more. Yeah.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so by the way, you mentioned that people will have to make a very hard decision at the end of your game. So do you believe that your game's story have a very core message that you would like to give to the players that they can learn from? And if yes, then could you tell us something about that? What influenced the message?
Well, I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, true,
but,
understandable. No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because I believe that creators...
It's
No, go for that.
It's definitely a moral choice that you have to make at the end. I can sort of give you that. And
is it something that's close to you?
It's close to everyone, I think. Okay. Yeah.
But what made you get this message and put into the game? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Okay.
So because I believe that if somebody is putting any message into their craft, it's even if it's not intentional, it is from the back of their mind, right? So it's something important to them at the end of the day. So that's why I'm asking.
It probably revolves a lot about being a parent in this particular one, and so or even just. Maybe not even such a parent, but just someone who cares for another person. I think is the kind of thing that I guess was the core aspect of why I put it in the game. And it's an interesting one. I mean, some people make the decision really quickly. Other people will have to think about it. But there will be multiple endings to the game, and so depending on the decision you make. Will affect the outcome. So
So here comes an interesting question with it, without spoilers. Do you think so? Let me get this straight. I feel like all creators who make any form of art, when they have a message, and usually they do. There will be some people, not all of them, who will be able to relate to the exact person's thoughts and message that they want to give. So, for example, let's mention that if there is, for example, a game about love, people will get in any different direction. Some people will get that it's sad love because they lost someone. Some people will get it as a very happy love. But do you think because you mentioned that there is a choice that we will have to make as a player? Do you feel like there will be players that will get the exact message and the exact choice that you would make at the end of the game? Would understand your feelings by that? Do you think that would happen? And would you be happy for that if that would happen?
I would. Look, there's two things that I'm thinking about when you ask that question. So one is interpretation. So looking at playing the game or any kind of media, you interpret it, and you may interpret it differently to the way that it was intended, but that's okay. That's fine. That's perfectly normal. And it may be a different experience and something that maybe even I didn't intend to put into the game, or we didn't intend to put in the game. So that could happen. But I guess putting that aside, I think the kind of there is sort of a real life aspect to the choice that you have to make in the end, and I think a lot of people. I'm trying to be a little bit cryptic to try and make sure I don't give anything away, but I think everyone at a certain point in their life has to make a decision like this. And it may not be as extreme as the decision that's in this game. But yes, I think most people come across this challenge in their life of, having to make a difficult decision. And so I think people will resonate with it. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So you have your choice, right? So if you would to play through the game, or you made those choices in your life, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Well, I'm in two minds when I think about the choice myself, and so it's
So for you, it would be hard to make that choice, right? If I'm correct about it. Okay.
I think so. In some ways, yeah. It's quite a yeah. I don't want to give it too much, but yes.
No, I don't. So don't get me wrong. I'm not asking you about this because I want spoilers. I'm interested in you and your creative mind and your personality. Because
I appreciate that.
So, for example, I'm always saying this example. For example, that in the Batman trilogy movie, there was like an open ending, if you remember that. But when the creator or director of that movie made it clear after like 2 or 3 or 4 years after the release of that movie that he had a plan, even if he had an open ending, and even, for example, the writers of Life is Strange had, at their back of their mind, they had, the exact choice that they would choose, and they might be resonating with the players who might chose that same, path on the road at the ending of the game. So it's very interesting to see that, because I had always this misunderstanding and argument with my literature teacher in gymnasium, that she always told us that if you for example like remember those times when he as kids had to like analyze poems and books, and she always told us in school that we as human beings, we cannot understand the exact human being behind the creative process or the craft that they have created. And I always told her that it's not true. In my opinion, if you really like went through, like you mentioned before, all those, for example, experiences that the creator had as well, you could like form a bond, together, even if
I think you're right.
And it's a very beautiful feeling, in my opinion,
It's true, and I think art, for example, is kind of the most purest form of that.
True.
I think
it's
you're exactly right. And look,
bond, right? So
yeah. And I guess getting back to your comment, I know you don't want me to kind of give away any spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm just like, often I just say things that I think later on I think, damn, I gave away too much there. So that's why I'm being a little bit standoffish on that one.
That just means that you are passionate about your project and you're an honest man, which I appreciate.
Yeah, actually, the other thing I'll say to this is that in the game, when you're playing it, look out for little clues, because in the game we're going to reveal kind of what happened in the first story. Now, it's not going to give everything away, but it's going to give you a little bit of indication of perhaps the history of Dolven before the game it is that you're playing. Yeah.
By the way, you mentioned that you would like to like make other games as well, not in the same universe. So do you have like already like plans for other games? Or?
We do. We absolutely do. So
you my wife, she's for the future.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. So my wife is also very talented, and she comes up with a lot of. She's here right now, so I can't give her too much of a big head. But she comes up with a lot of great ideas. And so the next game that we'll be kicking off once Dolven is released, hopefully sooner if we get funding, then I'd love to be able to kick it off, is a game called Maralinga. Now, Maralinga is actually a place in Australia, and there's a really cool show on Netflix. I don't know if you can get it in every country, but there's a show called Operation Buffalo, right? and it's set in the Australian outback. So if anyone wants to look at a really cool Australian sort of show that's set in the outback in the 1950s, I think it was. It's called Operation Buffalo. Now, before this point, we came up with this idea. Before we watched this show, we came up with this idea of making a game based on this place called Maralinga. Now, what happened in Maralinga in the 1950s? It's in the middle of Australia, where it's just basically desert. There's nothing there, except there was. They did atomic bomb tests, right, in the 1950s. The Australian government and the the British government, they did tests over there, and they let off a whole bunch of atomic bombs.
I see.
And so we kind of came up with this idea, like, what if we had a game that was set in the 1980s, which was 30 years after this atomic tests,
okay.
It was like a different timeline, and the bombs had actually radiated the area,
okay.
And created these, creatures and mutated Australian animals like scary koalas and kangaroos with teeth and all the rest of it. How about maybe a game like that where it's a kind of like a survival kind of horror game, which we're I've always wanted to make a horror game. I think it'd be pretty cool. And so we kind of thought, well, why not do that? The great thing is it's got a sort of a true story aspect to it. So if you look up Maralinga on the web, Maralinga Australia, it'll talk about all that. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to get some people who are Indigenous to the area, so First Nations people in Australia, to help us out.
Oh, nice.
To build it as well. So we're in conversations right now with people. Some people I grew up with, other people who are sort of part of agencies that can advise us on, what happened back there. Because one of the big things that happened back then was that when they did the testing, the First Nations people, a lot of them suffered really bad radioactivity and radioactive burns and things like that, and died, and a lot of them actually what happened was that they'd lit off these bombs and it'd be really warm, so they'd walk towards the warmth and they'd sleep in the where the bomb had been let off, and so they were all really badly kind of hurt, and a lot of them died. And so I think it'll be part of the story that we tell will be, a tribute to those people that that didn't.
But that's very nice of you and your wife doing this, in my opinion. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great thing, another great journey, and that's what it's really about. We're actually.
I'm looking forward to it because I think that your ideas are fresh takes on some genres that are already in the video game industry, and I can imagine that you will tune up this horror survival genre with fresh takes. So I can
absolutely we've got a whole bunch of new ideas, and we're actually gonna head over there. We're gonna go to Maralinga in hopefully early next year and meet people over there. As I said, I'm real big on talking and understanding, on a personal level. And so we're going to go over there and make a trip and hopefully get a little bit of, inspiration from that as well.
That's nice. And that's also a good theme to explore, and a genre in which you can use this environmental storytelling aspects, and that you can use for people to tell this story, so people can even play it if they had someone to, that's
exactly.
Understand the story better.
Yeah, the interesting part is that I learnt about it by going there when I was young. I was there, I was probably 13 or 14 years old. My parents took me on a big trip all the way around Australia, and I learnt about it then. I talked to my kids; they've never heard of it. I talked to people that are kind of more younger generation, they haven't been told the story, and I think that's a shame. And so, I think this, it might be a bit embarrassing for the Australian government, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'd like to get them embarrassed, but this is something
that you have such a strong vision that especially at this point of our life in this crazy world, it's very important in my opinion, because you might get burned in the process on your journey, but it's still important to give out these messages, because that's how people will react and relate and understand, and
learn.
Maybe finally humanity will learn from their mistakes, maybe. Just maybe, but
I wouldn't go that far, mate. I wouldn't go that far, mate.
But small steps,
Yeah, small steps.
That's the journey, I guess. Yeah, but I really appreciate you and your wife's ideas and work.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So that's one of the big ones. We've got a couple of other little ones in the works. So one that we've actually got the title for already, which is Tin Shed Time Machine. It's called. Which I had a
going back in time.
So this is a dream I had actually one night, and I woke up and I'm thinking, this would be cool for a game.
Okay. Was it like a click?
Oh yeah, it was very vivid dream, right? Okay. What I did was I was in a dream and I walked into the backyard tin shed with one of my mates, and we were sitting there, and suddenly inside the tin shed, and the windows kind of blew out, and all this kind of like really weird cyclone-y thing happened, and then it stopped, and then I walked out, and I was in like the 21st or 24th century or something like that, and there were like flying cars and all sci-fi, that kind of thing. It was freaking awesome, like an awesome dream I had. And I thought, what's going on here? That tin shed, it's a time machine. So we got back in there, and we're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Let's see where else it goes. And it happened again, and then suddenly I'm back home, but my friend wasn't there. And that was like, oh, I've got to go find him. And that's when I woke up. So it's kind of like it's like a story there where basically you go to a different time, you lose your friend, and your job is to try and find him again. So yeah, so I thought that would be a cool little one. And then I thought, you could do different times. So you might go back to dinosaurs or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it could be quite a large game, so I might kind of hold on to that one for a bit. But I thought that'd be a fun one to make. Yeah, so I want to make a sci-fi as well at some point.
Okay. Would you change something in your past if you could go back in time? By the way, speaking of the topic.
The obvious ones, so friends and family you've lost, I think is always the obvious one.
Yeah, it's understandable.
But I think look, I probably would have been a bit more probably would have taken a few more risks when I was younger.
I see.
I think I'm afraid for people today as well, who are kind of young teenagers, early 20s. I think that I think the whole, when I was a kid, maybe you were the same. We just used to jump on our bikes at 8 o'clock in the morning, bugger off for the whole day, and then come home at 6 o'clock at night. But I would never let my kids do that now, which is, it's a bit crazy, but I don't know what's changed.
Very changed, so it's way harder to let kids out these days, right? So it's way more crazy. Back at the time, I remember as a kid, it wasn't like that scary, to go out. And even if our parents, feared that something bad things would happen, it was way more safer to go out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, your camera froze and voice froze. Yeah, it's good now.
We're back. Okay, cool. I don't know. Maybe we just weren't aware of the risks or something. I don't know. But yeah, I kind of think, I mean, we did some pretty crazy stuff when we were kids,
I think
but
everyone did, right? So
yeah, but I think the I think today, there's devices, these things, they suck the life out of some kids. I think they get really quite addicted to the dopamine hits and all that sort of jazz, which I think sometimes you just got to put the phone down and go out and make a few mistakes, have a few drinks, say something stupid, and sort of because I think the key in today's society is actually going to be mostly around communication. I think all of the technical jobs and all that sort of stuff, a lot of that's getting automated now. I think the future is really in communication, and so
True.
getting out there, talking to people, doing what you're doing right now, I think is where you're going to really excel as a person. I think if I look back and think what I would have changed, I probably would have done more of that. I wouldn't have been so concerned about going and talking to someone I didn't know. I make that I try every time I go into a room full of people. I always try and talk to someone I don't know and understand. I kind of think of it in the back of my mind, kind of like a quest. I'm going out on a quest and I'm gonna meet some people and
done, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I love it. There's attitude, and I totally agree with you that nowadays even it's like even if internet is out there and mobile phones and every technology, so people could really go deeper into communication with others, but they are not doing that, and they are afraid, and it's on one hand I can understand that because there are some very crazy people over the internet and IRL as well, but on the other hand people are like very scared, for example, to get somebody's number in on the street if they tend to like the other person, for example, and it's weird. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird.
You just got to. Well, the other thing is like everything is videotaped now as well. I did some real stupid things, and I'm lucky the internet wasn't around back then.
True. Yeah.
And so kids are kind of they're subject to that as well, which is not good.
I agree.
But I think
too fast, but without knowledge. So I feel like they have so many informations since the internet became mainstream that they gather these informations, but they do not have the understanding of those information, which is very bad. Like they at the age of 15 and 14 or 16 or whatever, they will have information about everything that we did not used to have as kids, and it's weird. Like it's very weird.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think the difference though being older is you have knowledge and you have wisdom well, some of us do anyway, but others don't.
True.
But I think you're right. I mean, there needs to be a balance. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of the mobile phone. I think it's always going to be there, and the internet's always going to be here. But you've got to make time and put the phone down, go and do something, go out to the movies with your friends.
I'm very old school in this way because I almost never use my phone, by the way. So every friends of mine know that they can can't reach me by phone, or any application that is on phone, because I do not have applications on phone. My phone is there, like not even charged all the time. So whenever I go to somewhere, I need to charge it. Do not forget that I have my phone. So I'm very old schoolish people in that way.
I'm a bit old school as well. I use it for phone calls, and also playing a Marble Snap on the toilet. That's about it.
Yeah. That's how we really show that we appreciate the old school era, right? So real connections with humans and not just connections. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Cool.
Is there anything that we haven't touched as a topic, even if it's like your game or as a personal side of your stories?
I've actually got a build of Dolvin here that I've put together. Would it be worthwhile, maybe spending a few minutes just showing off some of the new stuff?
Okay, I'm down to that.
Would you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool.
For that. Let me know if
all right.
If it's up.
Let me just see if I can share my screen. Just give me a moment. click on this one. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, I switched to it. Yeah, I do.
All right, beautiful. So, yeah, this is a build of Dolphin that nobody's seen before. So this is an exclusive build.
Thank you for that.
But that also means that it could break because I've only just built it in the last day. So you're looking at something fresh off the fresh off the deck. So basically, this is the title screen. You've got a 2-minute gameplay video, but we won't go into that.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll show you quickly the card decks that we've got. So hopefully this opens up. Yep. So these are all the different cards that you start off with, and a few more. And so as I was kind of talking to before, basically you have a mana count on the top left, and you have a rune count on the top right. And basically you have a description of what the card does. So this one, for example, does 13 dark damage to all characters, and it occurs once per turn for 2 turns.
I see.
And you might notice these kind of gaps here. So the idea is that you're going to be able to grab gems, and these gems you'll be able to slot into the gem slots, and they will do things. Yeah, empower the cards. And so, for example, you could bring the mana count down to 5 with one of them, or maybe instead of occurring for 2 turns, it might occur for 3 turns, or might increase the damage. So the idea is to have all those sort of aspects to upgrading your cards.
I see. Okay.
Now you'll notice in the cards they have different colors. So these are different suits. So that's a green dexterity.
I see.
Yep. And this one here is a red strength card. And you'll see that they kind of do more to your sort of tank characters. So a strength card affects your guardian and warrior the most. And so this one here adds 11 armor to all player characters. So they're the different suits. Now there's
art design choice, by the way, for characters and for cards.
Thank you. Yeah, they're looking great. And these ones are called mercenary cards. So you see here we've got the name mercenary there. They stay in play so that you can create hands with them, and I'll show you how that works hopefully in a bit. And then the other type of card that you have is a spell card. Now these spell cards, they are basically instant, and you play them on the grid. You can't form hands with them, but they will affect either a tile. This one summons a bear on a tile, for example, and you play those kind of like instant spells, I guess, on your characters. So yeah. So they're now you can create a bunch of decks, different types of decks. You can add and remove cards and all that sort of jazz. So it's your sort of typical card deck builder.
Okay.
So we might just quickly see if we can jump into the game. So the demo itself, we've just added this new section to it, which is the quick play. Quick play allows you to jump straight into a dungeon and start playing it rather than going through the storyline. I won't go through the storyline because it'll give away too much, but let's see what happens when I jump into this one. So when you start off, you've got your characters. You can recruit new characters. You have a main character yourself. That's kind of your protagonist that you create at the start of the game, and then you can add in your characters and build up your party as you go. So we'll just stick with these ones. We've got a mage, a rogue, a guardian, and a warrior.
Okay.
Yeah. So
can you, by the way, recruit from the same class to form the same class party, like 4 mages, for example?
You need the 3. So the party you want is 2 DPS, a tank, and a healer of some sort, or a mage. So you kind of need the 3 class types, I guess.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've turned the music off for now, just so that we can hear what's going on.
Voice. Thank you for that, Sam.
Yeah, so this is a typical dungeon. We have got a zombie. We've got 2 mages. You can see up in the top right here, it sort of indicates, what the class is.
Okay.
And we've got a skeleton warrior. So that's our enemy. We're fighting against the werewolf, which is the first boss that you play against in the dungeon.
I see.
And we have ourselves. We've got a mage, a rogue, a guardian, and a warrior. So to show you a spell card, for example, this one's called Raise Ground, and what it does is it raises the ground and it obstructs enemies and provides cover. So for example, if you've got a mage and your rogue is here, you could put a barrier there, and they can't shoot through the barrier to hit your rogue. So to play a card, you just drag it, and it sort of shows you the areas where you can play it. So I'm just going to drag this over here. I'm going to put up a bit of a barrier there to stop him from moving around.
I love that, by the way, the characters and the enemies in the little circles are moving and making animations.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to move these guys up. I'm not going to move them too close. I might bring up my... So this one's a tank.
Okay.
And she has got a number of moves. So these are the skills that you can play. So when you click on a character, you can play skills. She has got bash, block, and sword and shield slash.
I see.
And they all do different things. And the range of that is kind of displayed as I mouse over it. So for example, a mage can shoot a bit further with their spells than, say, a rogue who can only go 1 square. So we'll move our guys up. We'll move up the 2 tanks, and we might leave the mage and the rogue back because they're kind of the weaker ones.
I see.
So once you've played your cards, now you'll see here, this is the mana pool down in the bottom left. I haven't got any more mana, so I've got 0 mana, which means I can't really play any of these cards. So I'm just going to end my turn now, and we're going to see what the boss does. All right, so he's moved up his mage. Oh, he's going to hit my guardian, and he's going to play the Seal of Faith. So the Seal of Faith puts a barrier around the enemy, and it reduces the damage. So you can see if we mouse over here, it's a 20% damage reduction. So now, unfortunately, I still can't play any cards because I've drawn high card. Usually don't draw high card counts, but I have, so unlucky there. But let's start using some of these skills. So with the guardian, I'm going to use block, and block also taunts, so it means that these people will hit that character first. And I'm going to start using some of these skills. So I'll use that's the
nice.
That's a powerful one. Yeah, I'm actually a bit overpowered at the moment, so we might see a pretty quick game, but we'll see what happens. I'll move this one forward. We'll do a little bit of damage to that one. Usually you want to take out at least one character. I might bonk this guy on the head. So I'll put this bash also does a stun. So you see there, that one's been stunned for 2 turns. And we might just do a spinny attack here. So that's hit 2 characters at once. That's an AoE. And I'll move my rogue right up near this mage because rogues are really good against mages. And I'll end the turn there.
Okay.
We still haven't played any mercenary cards yet, so it's all been spell cards. So he just played Touch of Death, and now he's going to fire off.
Do you get like 2 minutes every turn?
You get a mana. You get the mana count per turn. So turn 3 you'll get 3 mana. All right. So now we have got 5 mana. Right. So we could play. We could actually get a pair. Let's do a pair so we can show you how that works. All right. So we've got a 2 here, which is Aragoth, and we've got Mirren, who's also a 2, and they're both suited. So let's play Aragoth first, and he just does a little bit of damage against the characters. So you see there, taking a little bit of damage off there. And then we'll play Mirren. So Mirren will play on the same pillar group. And what you'll see is that we'll get a pair.
Oh, okay.
Right? And that gives us a pair, and that gives us extra mana there. So the next turn we'll have a bunch more, at least one more mana than what we would have.
I see.
Now, you would have seen this card also gave us a buff. So it gave us a buff along this column. So if we look at the card again, it says plus 14 dexterity to all player characters in this column last 2 turns. So now they've all got dexterity buff, which is great. So let's see what we can do with one of these. See if we can take out this guy right here. Why not? Maybe one more hit. Got him.
Oh, they're also like finisher moves. Okay.
Yeah, it's finisher moves. Yeah. So that one we took him out. Now we'll see if we can what we can do with this one. Probably kill it off, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Cool. And then, yeah, we'll probably take out this lady as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty overpowered at the moment, I've got to say.
Okay.
Because I've picked...
Sometimes you got to be, right? So.
Yeah, I picked up all this gear, so there's a whole gear system as well. And so, yeah, you can deck out your characters, pick up gear as you go, and yeah, you can swap in and out stuff. So I've sort of got them all tweaked nicely at the moment. But I might just end my turn so we can see if at least a few more rounds before we win. Okay, so he's used a health card, which he probably didn't need to do because he's already full health. But anyway, he took out my guardian. The mages are pretty strong. All right, so he played a 3. Have I got a 3? I've got another 3 here. So let's get another mana there. All right, plus 1 mana.
So you can pair cards with enemy cards as well. I see.
You can, that's right. So you got to be careful. I've played 2 3s there. He might have a 3, and if he drops the 3 there, he'll get 3 of a kind, which means he gets 2 mana plus a draw card. You know.
I see.
But you know what? I'm not going to let him get there. I'm going to use quite a powerful spell, which is the poison spell. So what this does is it adds poison to the daggers, and then I'm going to throw on Aura of Agility, and I won't be surprised if this actually kills the mage straight out. Yep, there we go. Took him out. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the game, and yeah, so that's one room of this dungeon. Yeah, that's pretty much the first kind of the first look at what we call the quick play.
Okay, love it.
Yeah.
So as for the story part, you have like cutscenes during the rooms, or there is like a narrator who tells the story.
Yeah.
Wondering about
so
the gameplay, actually.
Yeah, for sure. So this, as I said, this was the kind of quick play part of it, but the story. So when you first start the game, there will be a cutscene which goes for about 2 minutes.
Okay.
And it kind of leads up to the first dungeon. The first dungeon, the very first room, is actually a puzzle room.
Okay.
That you have to try and escape. So you get through that, and there's a few other little puzzles along the way, and there's also cutscenes in the dungeon itself. So you'll come across certain characters that you'll have to talk to and things like that. So yeah.
That. Thank you, by the way, for showing us this exclusive footage. Thank you.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, are you down to answer some questions from my community as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, there was, by the way, a question. DDR is asking that. Do you know already how much will cost in order to buy your game? So what
To
is the
buy it.
price that you are aiming for?
Yeah.
I know
So
it's a more
we
boring
are.
question, but
No, that's all right. So it's we're looking at trying to put it in for. Well, our competitors are around the $30 mark,
okay.
which is Australian dollars. I don't know what that is in your currency, but it's probably about maybe $20 US.
I see.
If that kind of translates, yeah. So that's what we're trying to aim for. So not it's not going to break the bank, but obviously we want to try and recoup a bit of money for the
I
work
don't
we've
mind, by
done,
the
and
way. So
hopefully,
I'm into
yeah,
buying games. So I'm not the person who is against putting money against games.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It wasn't my question, so don't blame me.
No, no, no,
Don't
no,
blame
no,
me,
no, no.
please.
It's all right. Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. No, I think yeah. So we want to try and fund the next game as well
I
with
see. That
Dolphin.
makes sense.
So yeah, that's the plan.
I see. I
The
cannot wait
it's
for
worth
it to
mentioning.
release and the cards as well. So let me know
Yeah,
when when and
yeah,
where I can buy my cards as well.
absolutely. Yeah, so the game will also have it's going to have about 16 dungeons, so
Okay.
there's quite a bit of gameplay. And yeah, we're looking about 20 hours of gameplay
That's a lot,
to get
actually.
through
By
the
the way,
yeah
that's a lot, and I love it.
yeah to get through the story, and then we'll also have the quick play mode, and we'll also have the we're looking at putting in a leaderboard as well. So there'll be that replayability. You can collect gear, you can upgrade your skills, all
True,
that
true,
sort of
true.
thing will be
We
part of it
also
as
can
well.
try out new cards to play with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the deal. That's the idea. Yeah,
Love it, love it.
yeah.
Okay, any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Bár más kérdés? Bár más kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Any more questions? Let us know. Please let us know. Let us know.
How many people has he got looking?
Let us know. Let us know. Didier is saying that with his opinion, he loves your game so far, and he will for sure buy it when it releases.
Ah, that's very nice. I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you. Yeah, we're really looking forward to the release. So as I said, that'll happen in October. So October the 11th. It's
Okay.
going to coincide with the Steam RPG Fest.
Okay.
So that will that's happening at the same time. And so you'll be able to jump on and download that, and you'll be able to play through the very first dungeon, including the storyline, and then also do the quick play. So that's the first release, and then based on the feedback we get from that, we'll then be improving the game and then releasing. Hopefully, the year after is the plan. So I'm lost for what year it is these days, but yeah, probably 2026 maybe, end of 2025, something like that. Yeah.
Your wife is helping out there. I can hear you.
She is. She says 25. It's going to be 25, isn't it?
I gotta get him moving.
She says she has to get me moving. So,
yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Bár más kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Okay, Mini is asking an interesting question also. Do you or have you ever thought that your voice is so good, in Mini's opinion, that you would be like a voice actor because you have a very strong and muscular voice?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm trying to think. I've thought about it, but
For example, like voicing your own
yeah.
games.
Yeah, I have thought about that
Okay.
sometimes, but
So you know
I
your
think for this
talent then.
one,
That's good.
well, I mean, I sing on the album. I sing, so
Yeah, true.
yeah.
That's true.
So I do a bit of singing, so I'm a bit practiced, I guess. But I think, yeah, if this particular game, Dolphin, is kind of more suited to an English sort of a feel. I think a Celtic kind of English sort of feel, and I think Australian accent is is a bit a bit harsh for it. It might be good for Maralinga. I think I might give it a go in Maralinga because that is Australian, and so it might work well there.
You could be the
so yeah,
narrator of that game. I can tell.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, but thanks for the compliment, and yeah, I'll certainly keep it in mind, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you for the questions and the answers as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let us know if there is any more question. Van bármilyen más kérdés? Nyugodtan írjátok meg. By the way, what skills would you like to pick up in the future as for your journey for game development?
Yeah, good question. I think I want to make sure that I'm always close to the engineering, and so, I like Unity and I like C#, which is the language that you code Unity in, and I want to keep learning that. But I'm also interested in Unreal Engine, and that's written in C++. And so I'm thinking that maybe when we start Maralinga, we might start it in Unreal, which I think kind of makes sense as well, because I think for a horror game, it's got to be, I think it's got to have some kind of realism to it. It needs to be, because that's what really I think will resonate with people, is that kind of realness. And I don't think you can get as higher quality in Unity that you can in Unreal. So I might switch over to that and do some prototyping in that. And hey, it gives me an excuse to learn something new. So that'd be fantastic if I could do something like that. I'd be really I'd probably spend way too much time on it.
I see. Any more questions? Any more questions?
If anybody would like to listen to my music,
yeah, sure. Do that. Yeah, sure. I just somehow could not copy paste out from the Discord.
That's okay.
Do that.
So that's it's going to be released at the end of this. If you like rock and roll, if you like 80s and 90s, you can listen to the first two tracks right. It's $10 Australian, which is a US,
like
I think.
Physical edition to it as well, or
it's just a digital one for now. See how it goes first before we pump a whole. Yeah, but maybe have a listen. Yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback if you ever.
I will.
That'd be great.
Okay. Is there, by the way, any topic that we have not mentioned to talk about? Even if
I don't know. I think we've.
Anything else?
Oh, I don't know. I think we've pretty much covered. I'm trying to think of what.
Don't forget.
Yeah, I think. Don't forget to. That's right. Don't forget to wish list. Yeah, it's on Steam. I think we've got the link in there.
How do you feel, by the way, about the business? promoting it? Is it something that for you, by the way, if we are speaking of
Yeah, I mean, I've also the kind of you're an expert at it, but you know, I used to sort of work, and we would run a business behind that and things. Would have done that before. The hard, I think it's always with most developers is and PR work. It takes up a lot of, so you got to kind of make sure you set aside. We've got someone in with that, but you can't just be left to it's really everybody communicating and the various mediums that are available to you. You know, we all do our bit in that aspect. I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy meeting people about it, but it does take a the actual development of the game. But you can't. I think if you beaver away and then release it, indie studio like us, even be aware of the fact that there's the sort of sales teach you this idea of a sales. The very first part of that funnel, if people don't know you exist, you've got to get there. Then a small percentage of those people will be interested in it, and then they will desire it, and then they will buy it, and that's kind of how the sales funnel works. And it'll get thinner and thinner and thinner. So the more awareness you do, the more chance you have of people that are come down and actually buy the game. Now, I think there are certain circumstances where that's kind of bypassed, where you've just got a totally crazy product that is just absolutely goes nuts by itself. But those instances are really quite rare.
Yeah.
And so you got to work hard at doing it. And I think what we've got is good. It's good fun, the game to play, and we've had some good feedback. So now it's really making sure that
like I mentioned before, there are a lot of fresh takes on this genre. So you can combine a lot of experiences from real childhood with a lot of fresh takes in the video game industry.
Yeah.
For the genre.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very nice.
And I did that on purpose as well. Is that I thought, well, I could just make a turn-based game, or I could just make a card game. That's possible. But if I really want to do something interesting and maybe something that might be a new experience for people, then why not combine them? And I think that's what we've come up with. I'm really proud of what we've done so far, and I think it's going to be something that hopefully a lot of people will enjoy in the future.
True. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if
cool.
There is no more questions, I will need 2 or 3 minutes of yours after our interview. But yeah,
no worries.
For those who were watching us, thank you for tuning in live, and thank you if you will watch back the VOD or the edited version later. And thank you, by the way, Andrew, that you joined us today, and I'm very honored, like I said before, that you joined us. And for those who were watching us, thank you again for your questions and your time as well. Bye-bye, everyone.